Hello and welcome to the open book launch of our beautiful new pamphlet, I Give My Word. I'm Marjorie Lotfi. We're here with Hannah Lavery.
And I'm Claire Urquhart. We're delighted to be here with you today and to bring you some of the work that's been written by our groups across our project year, from Orkney all the way through, including Shetland as well, I should say, all the way through Aberdeen, Ullapool, right the way down through the Central Belt, Aberdeen, Dundee, Perth, and as far down as Stranraer and Wigtown, where we are today, coming to you from the Wigtown Book Festival. We'd like to say thank you to Event Scotland for supporting the production of this book this year, and to Creative Scotland. It's been work that's been written as part of our Year of Stories project, which is taking place across the whole of Scotland with lots of organisations taking part.
They're all been written in our usual creative writing groups. So we've been doing the thing we do best, which is getting together, chatting about poems and stories, and then writing in response. So we've collected lots of that writing into this book, and some of those writers are going to be here with us today. Some of the writing in the book is also done by groups as a whole, so we might get a chance to read that out loud. You might hear some creaking in the background. We're in a tent in the wind, so excuse us if that's the case. We're also thrilled to have Hannah with us here today. Lots of our groups wrote to her poem, Scotland, You're No Mine, this year as part of this project. So I think while we're hoping she'll read us that poem, you might also hear lots of other people reflecting her words and using bits of that poem to come back. Hannah, you will know well, but if you don't, she's a poet and a playwright. She has many, many accolades to her name, including being our current Edinburgh Macker, but she also has the most beautiful book out just now. She's going to hold it up for you to see, Blood Salt Spring, which she's going to read for us today. So I think we should just hand over to Hannah, because we're getting the joy of last year we had our own reading. This year we're having a joy of having someone else's words on stage with us today. So Hannah, will you kick off for us and do a few poems, and then we'll take it from there.
Hello everyone. I'm going to read you a few poems from my collection, Blood Salt Spring, and I will finish with reading Scotland, You're No Mine, which I'm really excited to read some of your responses to that. Okay, so Flying Bats. I was invited here, I'm sure I was, to read my poetry. That's what the email said. I've been writing a lot about trees. Oh, there's this nest I found in a hedge, bluey eggs. A starling, was it? I was invited, that's what it said. Tonight, for all you lovely folk, I'm unpacking my poetry suitcase. Ta-da! The travelling poetry salesman, that'll be me. Roll up, going, going. And they say after, I love how you spoke about found nests as a metaphor for immigration. Truth is, I've always been here. I was just writing about this wood at the back of my house, about a nest I found. How at night I duck the bats as if they might fly into my hair, even though I know I duck. Even though I know they know this place just as well as they know I know this place. Still, I duck. I'm going to read a poem called Poetry Platforms for you. And it's a poem that I wrote sort of inspired by my relationship with poetry, and about how we sort of instinctively know how to write poems, but then we get told through our lives that there's some great mystery that we can never know, and we get sort of alienated from our own voices, I think. So this is called Poetry Platforms, and it felt in keeping with what Open Book's about. Poetry Platforms. Before I was told about you, I knew you. We would keep each other company with I Spy on long car journeys. I found you, jumping puddles as wide as oceans, comparing Nana at the window to a setting sun, dissolving sugar, or my last Rolo. Later, they tried to make you a stranger, when Sir ripped the flesh from your bones. But you came in for me, came back as a, all right, a hiya, a yell, A sigh from the bottom of a well, or was it a dark cave, or that forbidden corner of the back green? We carry each other now, like soldiers carry each other off the battlefield in films, like revolutionaries retreat from the barricades in songs, like children come when dinner is called. I haul you on my back and you carry me in your arms. You offer me ways, veils to dance with, spittoons, bin bags and platform shoes. Poetry and I, poetry and me, is all this, I think, and other stuff too. It feels like I've been accompanied by the rain in that one, which I quite like. So I'm going to read you this poem. One of the things I love about poetry is that we can, it sort of sits with us in our hardest moments and helps us understand the big things that happen. And this poem is about grief, and it's for a friend of mine that I lost last year called Baldina Odenyo, and it's called Leaves Fall Gold. There is something divine in endings when God comes to sit with you. Leaves fall, gold on the ground. The day the call came, she is gone. I lay on my bedroom floor like a felled tree staring up at the irreplaceable. Should we cry out to the sky? Where should we take it, this pain? I stared at the empty sky. Where did she go? Until it dropped low enough to meet me in the December sun. And as this year closed, a bullfinch came to sit, beautiful orange, in the bare winter branch. I light another candle to light up flat memory, but the sun cut in, leaving my ritual redundant. There is nothing more sacred than the new day. It's how I move forward now that she has become everything. The sky is so beautiful today. I hear her laughter in it. I hear it all the time. I hear her in every line. And I'm going to finish with Scotland, You Know Mine. And it was a real honour to have this poem chosen to sort of as an offering for your own responses. So so it's become even more special to me, this poem. I am saying all this because I'm trying to find it in my book. Where's it gone? There you go. Okay. I got all these fancy things to help me, but it just seems to make it more difficult. So this is Scotland, You're No Mine. Scotland, you're no mine, and you are no his, and I don't want you. So go ahead, say I don't belong, with a sepia tinge cross-eye sweeping over all that swept away, blood-stained, sweat-stained sugar for your tablet, your macaroon, your rotten, gobby, greedy, thieving bastard you. Sitting atop all that shite and broken bones weeping, poor me. Fuck you, I will dance jigs on your flags, blue, white and red, it doesn't matter, but your wee chancer, fuck, for making us complicit, handing us whip and chains, an officer's coat, a civil service pen, a queen to love. And lay me out, I love you, with all your mountain time and your currying, and you can say, I didn't belong to you. Aye, go on. But I am limpet stuck on you. So fuck you for no seeing one of your own. I will spill here. My blood and your secrets bleed into your root and earth, and you forever, pagan, will in the spill and the seep, see all you really are. So fuck you, my sweet, forgetful Caledonia, with love. Fuck you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. It's wonderful. So many of our groups have read that poem across the whole of the country, so it's a real joy to get to hear it from your we have the rule in our group that the poet's never allowed in the room unless it's a reading. And so we get to decide for ourselves where the emphasis is and things. It's really lovely to hear it in your voice.
And I was just sitting listening to that, thinking of the comments that sort of groups had made and how people had loved the limpet stuck. You know, we often ask in a group, you know, which bit of the poem did you really like? And so many people picked that out this year, that sort of limpet stuck.
Yeah. That defiance of belonging, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We know it well.
Yeah.
So many of our groups read that poem, and some of them watched the video of you reading it as well. That's available on YouTube, I think, through the National Theatre, maybe.
Yep, National Theatre Scotland.
Yep.
Muted in all the right places.
Exactly. If you want the muted version,
There's
that's
two versions.
Radio edit.
But then took it away and wrote responses, and we'll hear some of those in some of the readings today. But I thought I would read you the group that responded calling with their poem, which is titled Scotland You'll Do. And that's Shakti Women's Aid, which is a centre in Edinburgh that looks after women who have experiences of or living with domestic violence. And they tend to be women from all over the world. And I think you'll hear that in this poem. Scotland You'll Do. Scotland, you're cold and brutal, depressing, always getting dark early. And your wind sweeps me away, makes me unsteady on my feet. You litter. You're careless. If you could make money collecting rubbish, we'd all be rich, and the streets would be clean. You're free to wear what you want, and I like that. But have a little self-respect. You don't have to show your body to everyone to be accepted. Your tartan is unique, though. It's your pride, and your kilts are your history. They make you, you. Your accent is like you're singing, and a little drunk. It's hard to understand what you're saying. What are you saying? I can't quite tell. It's something about being brave and independent. Your schools are doing good work. Your teenagers are rebellious, like everywhere. But you're open and tolerant of other religions. In the summer, Edinburgh becomes a romantic city with its endless light and evergreen trees. We sit in your parks with a barbecue, hike in your hills, if our backs allow, have trips to the zoo and the beach. Scotland, your problems are not unique to you. We love your freedom. Scotland, you'll do. Lovely.
I love that.
I love that one as well.
Yeah, we loved that. When it came in, we were reading it in the office quite a lot, weren't we? So
we get the joy every week of reading the work that gets sent in by our lead readers who are facilitating the groups across Scotland. And it's always a highlight to take half an hour and a cup of tea to sit and read what's been written in the previous week by our groups. So.
And if you're one of our writers that writes with not in group poems, we love seeing your poems too. So some folks send their work on to the lead reader or back into the office, and it just gets posted, not anywhere public, but somewhere that Claire and I and Jess and Miriam can have a look. So it's a real joy to see what's getting created out of these groups too. And speaking of that,
I was going to say that's a perfect link to share some of the work of our writers and groups with you now. And I think we're going to start with Angela, who attends, amongst other things, our Images and Words group, which takes its inspiration from poetry but also from art. And she's going to share her poem. All the poems you'll hear today are in this collection, which you can get online from our website at openbookreading.com.
Angela, over to you.
Hi. So this poem is called Belonging. How to make this place home. I plant trees in the garden and the hedge for the bees and the ladybirds, the song thrush and blue tits, and the little mouse that lives in the wall. I put up curtains and blinds for privacy. Brighten the broad windowsill with flowers. A prism hung from the curtain rail makes rainbows in the sunshine. I chat with neighbours, sometimes for too long, and try to understand why those old people talk about the graves in the churchyard so much. My ancestors are far away now, buried by war, displaced by violence. I want to build anew embedding hoar and blackthorn, elder and hazel. May their roots become mine with time.
That's beautiful.
That's
Thank
beautiful,
you, Angela.
Angela. Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah,
us.
thank you. We really recognise that sentiment as well, especially I do as someone who's lived here a long time, and yet doesn't always feel like home. Next, we've got Elizabeth Utter from my BAME People of Colour group. And Elizabeth is going to read her poem, Between Heaven's Heat and Hell's Feet. Over to you, Elizabeth. Hi there.
Hi. Denton, with Jamaican roots van, is a man complex in identity, proud Rastaman who ferries tourists to sweet spots throughout the country, avenues of mangoes, fields of sugarcane, dripping in the heat to the soft splashing waters of Ochereus, where the Duns River falls, fountains of delight, on to Rick's Cafe to watch the sunset, drop the stitch of light, unpick in seconds to green, flashes, skipping on Caribbean sea surface to utmost blackout. Red, gold and green, this is his creed. He waves this flag and answers questions with the singular word, seen? Hands up to each police stop. In the states where he lives in Maine, gardening for the finest houses, for the richest, oldest families, the land knows. From one extreme to the other, cold sea blasts from coasts, having known the toast-hot days of Jamaica, creating a Garden of Eden, even in the cold with frost jaws, clamping, biting down on heat-soaked fingers, numbed, working miraculous botanical sites in the bone-stony yards of wealth. He moves with cool, is a stealthy mongoose under Uncle Sam's sharp-crowed eye. Visa impoverished, returns home, hands down and done.
Thank you.
Denton, with Jamaican roots van, hands up to each police stop, is a man complex in the States where he lived in Maine. Identity proud Rastaman, gardening for the finest houses, who ferries tourists for the richest, oldest families to the sweet spots throughout the land, knows from one extreme, the country avenues, to the other, cold sea blasts, of mangoes, fields of sugarcane, from coasts having known the dripping in the heat to the toast-hot days of Jamaica, soft splashing waters of creating a Garden of Eden, Ochi, where the Duns River falls, even in the cold, fountains of delight, with frost jaws, on to Rick's Cafe to watch the sunset, clamping, biting down, drop the stitch of light on heat-soaked fingers, unpick in seconds to green, numbed, working, flashes skipping miraculous on Caribbean sea surface, botanical sites to utmost blackout, in the bone-stony yards of red, gold and green. This is wealth. He moves his creed, he waves this with cool, is a stealthy flag, and answers mongoose under Uncle Sam's questions with sharp-crowed eye. The singular word, visa impoverished, seen, returns home, hands down and done.
Beautiful, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
If you won't be able to see it unless you get the book. But what Elizabeth's done in that poem is to follow a form Hannah Lowe's, which we looked at in our session, which is to create a poem where one half of it is in bold along the left and the rest isn't. And so it can be read in two different poems or together if you read across the lines. So And what Elizabeth has done is to read them both for us. So thank you. It's beautiful, remarkable.
And a masterpiece of form, if ever I saw one.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And it inspired me to have a go, which I haven't managed to do yet, Elizabeth, but you inspired me to have a shot at that form. So thank you for that.
Yeah, lovely.
You're welcome.
We're going to hear next from Philippa. Philippa is a regular attender at our Off the Beaten Track group. That group particularly focuses on writing by authors we don't often hear, don't come across, and we look each week at writing that is perhaps from disabled writers, work in translation, LGBTQ writers, and writers of colour. And we try and bring our focus on those voices. And Philippa has been inspired by some work she read in those groups.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, this is written during one of the Off the Beaten Track sessions, and very much inspired by Hannah's work, and resonating with a life that has been very much off the beaten track. Kathmandu, Jazzmandu. It's not the tale my grandchildren expect of a seemingly responsible grandma. They expect a tale of a land unreal, a Shangri-La. Anticipated images of remote villages, bamboo baskets and smiling barefoot Sherpas on steep winding trails, set against snow-capped peaks, steep ravines, rushing water, bamboo thickets, banana trees and ripening mangoes. The vivid red of saris, the colour of marriage against the bright bouncing green of the ripening paddy. That tale exists, of course, well told, silently anticipated. So how can it be that Grandma's most vivid memories of years in Kathmandu tell a story of tabla drums beating out notes, resting on wisps of smoke? And why will no one listen? Thank you.
Beautiful.
I love that one. In fact, I love them all.
I
I'm going to be
know.
saying I love that one after everything we hear today.
Oh, we do love that. Next up, we have Barbara Prater from Eyemouth, from our Eyemouth group on the East Coast. And she's going to read a piece called Scotland Stories. Hi, Barbara.
Hi. I thought it was necessary to tell you the backstory before I start. So I came to live in Eyemouth in 2007. Previously, I lived in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Yorkshire, Sheffield, and started off in the East End of London. The town of Eyemouth is a hidden gem, an unspoilt fishing town, an old-fashioned bucket and spade holiday destination. It boasts resident seals who wait in the harbour for fish scraps to be thrown to them. They're very fat. So now you know background to the poem. You welcomed me with open arms. You didn't know me. It didn't matter. You showed me how to meet strangers and make them my friends. Your children respectful, your songs understandable, your shops friendly, your life free. I can walk your streets in the darkness in safety, only scared by the snort of a seal. Your people smile as they approach me, inquire of my health, listen to the answer. Your leader is friendly, a real, honest person. She smiles, speaks, not seeking a camera. I was so lucky that day I moved here. I've lived many places. I'm going nowhere now.
I love that piece. I remember that last line very well. Thank you.
So next we're going to hear from Morwenna, and she writes with our Stills group, which meets in Stills Gallery in Edinburgh, and takes its inspiration from poetry, but also from the art exhibitions that are on the walls of the gallery where the group meets. And she's going to share her poem, Arrival at Waverley Station.
Oh, there we are. My poem is called Homecoming. It isn't at all. It's called Arrival at Waverley Station. Homecoming. We've left sorry, I'm going to try again. Arrival at Waverley Station. Homecoming. We've left the dark miles of fields and trees. Home. The train stops under the high roof. We've come home to high cliffs of tenements and volcanic rock. The dark has gone. The city, ever lit, is here. Yellow streetlights, bright shop windows, night sky above these narrow streets. Silent, towering basalt. Tall sandstone buildings hide those inside, while all around the crowd's murmurs rise above the steady hum of the city night.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Rowena.
So atmospheric, that one.
And again about home, you know, that idea of where it is and where we're from and coming home to places. Next, we're going to hear from Mary Lowe, who attends our Scots group. Mary, you're going to read a poem called Reivers? Or Rivers? I think. Reivers?
Reivers.
Yes. Hi, Mary.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So this is called Reivers. No for us, the minnow or the newt. We ta'en our baggy nets, me and my brother, morn after morn, doon to the bush for sticklebacks. No money o' them, een lang syne, but there we'd stand, reivers o' the river, caterans o' the cauld, where the water ripples o'er the flat stanes, till yonder in a wee pool, a flicker of sunlight, is suddenly a fish, wafting and waving. Slow, slow with the net, let it sink doon, haud still, come in a hint, then heuch, we wheecht him out and drappit him in a gilly jar. But no afore we'd spiked our fingers on thon jaggy back, and there he was, wi' his reed belly and his siller sides, glinting, darting. Bid it back, they tell't us, as we offered up our prize. I feel my wee hands tighten, the miser in me hods back, and yet,
Lovely.
I think that's the first time we've had someone read for us in Scots in our groups. Our groups write and read Scots, Gaelic, Arabic as well as English. So
Not all in the same session.
not all in the same session, no. So we're delighted to have our Scots writers represented today. And I think we get some more Scots later on in our programme. So next we're going to hear from Lynn Graham, who's also in our Eyemouth group, and she's going to read Scotland and Beyond.
Hello. I wonder if I might screen share a couple of photos.
No, we
No,
can't do
I'm
that.
sorry, our tech team are shaking their heads, so I'm sorry.
Okay. No problem, no problem. Okay, this is Scotland and Beyond. Jessie, Bessie, Aggie, Molly, Bell, Aina, Mima, Jeannie and John. 1920s, wild girls, joyous, free days, war was over, life a little more daring. Hitching rides with boys on motorbikes, climbing the barracks wall to eye up the soldiers. This one's a fine fellow, written on the back of the photo. The Royal Scots Regiment brought Cyril here to the Pennicoot Glencorse barracks, long way from Derby to serve in the army rather than go down the mines. His eye was taken one night to see Molly. Though young, she was never too shy. Molly's courting a soldier, had to marry in haste. The talk of the tune, but she didn't care. It wasn't a time to be chased. Molly's married Cyril. They're off to the barracks to live, to travel away to far distant shores, support for her soldier to give. The Royal Scots took them abroad, to Palestine, India, and China. Army wife became her life. The barracks became her home. Her wildness now was left behind. She found strength in another country. Their third child was born in Chin Sin. White lies allowed her to travel. 2 girls and a boy were enough, she said, though she was only 27. The 20s for her were childbearing years. In her 30s, she gathered her strength. She was called to the commander's room to account for shopping in Indian markets. Well, she said, if the price is right, I'll shop where I like. And that was the end of the scolding. Eric Liddell taught them the scriptures on Sundays, much like home. But the phrases in Hindi my mother used, of different cultures told. I remember carved wooden tables and elephants in brass or wood. Their house at home was a gallery, and I wanted to explore all I could. Old photographs tell their tales of donkey rides on the great walls, of days on the beach in one-piece suits, memories hung on the wall. Molly's wild spirit never quite left her. She found it in parties and laughter. She loved the sea and to paddle in shorts, eating an ice cream after. From table maid to matriarch, she carried her love of life. Strong woman with a fun-loving heart is the way I remember my grandma.
Love that.
We love that. You wouldn't have heard us kind of almost giggling away
Yeah.
here at that story. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And some lovely turns of phrase that just brought a massive grin to my face when I first read this.
Yeah. Next, we're going to hear from Izzy Grieve, who's a part of our Orkney group. She's not quite the furthest north, but close. She's going to read Atlantic Fashion for us. Hi, Izzy.
Hi. I live beside it. The only thing between me and Canada is the Atlantic. So it impacts on my life every day. This one's called Atlantic Fashion. She wears many designs, patterns and colours. She changes her wardrobe with the sun and the moon. Yesterday she wore blue, Asia blue, which glistened. Today she rolls lazily in garlands of frothy white. Tomorrow, grey and ochre cloaks will crash around her. Next week, she will dance with the moon in black velvet. As New Year dawns, she will celebrate in gowns of emerald green. But be wary, she is envious and will seek to steal your clothes, for she has no fashion sense.
I love the idea behind that poem and the way that you've represented it. So next we're going back to our Scots group, and Anne is going to share her poem A Sicker Hoose with us. Hi, Anne.
A Sicker Hoose. No so lang syne we aye kent where hame was. We were sure we could bide a while, coorie in. But our muckle has changed. The world has gone topsy-turvy, and we're left fair forfochen. If I could turn things heelster gowdy, I'd hae an open door for all, a welcoming horn, a sicker hoose. I see the faces o' all they folk, wha hae to gan a wa to their ain country, to lippen to us. We maun treat them weel, wi' nae kerfuffle, just say, come all ye into my house.
That's wonderful. Really wonderful. Thank you.
So lyrical hearing it in Scots. Just
Yeah, it feels like music, really. And a real welcome, too. So thank you for that. Next up, we're going to have Gloria reading from our Images and Words group again, the group that looks at that art and also includes that in that response. She's reading her piece called Grandmother's Urn. Hi, Gloria.
Hello. Here's my poem. Grandmother's Urn. Gifted from the land slabs of seal brown mud, slides and shifts across my hands, fluid and smooth, imprints of my lifelines. The wheel turns, the land labours and breathes, swollen with fertility. Hands smooth, cajole, lovingly shape my grandmother's urn. Life stirs, connects with earth, synchronized, heart, hearth, rebirth.
Thank you.
Beautiful, and so different from the others. It's amazing, you know, how different the writing can be across the groups. Not really based on where you are, but just why are we surprised we have so many voices in this country? I don't know, but it always surprises me.
And it always amazes me what different people catch in a poem. You can show the same poem or share the same poem with hundreds of people, and someone will always notice something that you hadn't noticed before. And I love that. I love that about sharing poetry with our groups. So next we have Mina, who is writes and reads with our Oasis group at Mary Hill in Glasgow.
Hi, Mina.
Hi everyone. My poem is called Sea Sand, and it's inspired by Kwame Davi when I was attending BME group with Dean Atta. Sea Sand, here we go. At the end of my holiday, I pack my bag with half a kilo of sea sand along with my clothes. I collect sand from all different places I visit: silver white, grey, brown, and volcanic black too. I save the sand, bake it dry, ready to create sand painting. Often I get stopped at the airport security for inspection, asked to open my bag to show what am I smuggling. Is it a cannabis or cocaine or gunpowder? I explain, it is just the sea sand to create my souvenir. I use the sand to create sand painting on roof slates. They could be Hindu deity or natural beauty scenes. Gifting sea sand biryani reti painting to art lovers for their home. Thank you.
Beautiful, Mina. I remember you writing that poem and thinking, oh, I've got to start doing the same thing. I've got to start bringing sand home. But I already bring a half a kilo of shells home.
Well, I was going to say, when I bring sand home, it's usually unintentional. It's not the planned way that you do. I mean, I open out my bag and there's a pile of sand on the floor and I have no idea where it's come from when I've been to the beach. So maybe that could be my excuse, that I could put it to a creative use now.
Yeah, thank you for that idea too. Our penultimate reader is Keith, who attends both our GCP group and our Stills group, which is a photography gallery in Edinburgh. I think, Keith, that this poem's come from the Stills group, but I think the title will be one that we'll all recognise. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. This was written as a 7-minute response to a prompt given by Sam. Scotland, you're no mine. You see, you Jimmy Hearts, once warm, never forgiven. The vital question for today: get to the game on time or get another round in. Let's talk about Scotland, with its mountains and rivers, Body Morag and Woman in the Gloaming. Scotland, you're no mine, with the power cuts, turning and going for a shave into Fanny by gaslight.
Thank you, Keith.
I think the wind's picking up here, so apologies again if you can hear the creaking of this tent. We've been assured it won't blow away, but it's sounding more and more likely as the minutes pass. Our final reader is James, and he writes with lead reader Jess, who you might know from our office. She's also our operations manager at the Health and Wellbeing Centre in Edinburgh.
Hi gang, it's a real privilege to share the stage with so many beautiful poems and stories today. Thank you so much. This is my poem. It's called I don't tell this story anymore. It's family. It's a connection to history, a life not lived or even witnessed by me, but passed down in love, in fun, in a communication of heritage. But recently, there was a new light shed and the story grew darker. The brightness of this new light shone upon it, making its soft shadows dark, evoking a rumbling howl from ghosts thought long since laid to rest. I don't tell this story anymore. The joy has gone out of it. But maybe I can keep a little of the light. It's the story of my grandmother, how her huge family lived on a farm in Callan in Southern Ireland, how they were so poor they had no money for shoes and went to school on horseback 3 at a time, how she fell in love, how her love moved away, how she stole her father's prize turkey and sold it for the boat fare to England to join her love, how they married and then he was lost in war, how she moved to my hometown and met my grandmother and had my mother. And there are songs and light and laughter in that story. But this new light, with its harsh shadows and dark howls, make this story harder and harder to tell.
Thank you,
Wow,
James.
beautiful,
That's beautiful.
James.
And when I was reading this one, I thought it's just encapsulated Scotland's stories and the idea of capturing those stories of people who maybe they're not already not here, but certainly might not be around for long, and what a joy it is to capture those stories and share them. That's just beautiful, that piece.
Yeah, and how often we tell ourselves stories, you know, and we get into this rhythm of telling the same story in a particular way, and we've got a set story, as you say, James, that we tell, and they're not always right, you know, and I think of that in terms of like stories about slavery or stories about all sorts of things that we hear, and then now we're uncovering how they're not quite right. But it's true in our families too, you know. It's harder for me to face, but it's true in our families too. So
and it's interesting how two sisters can be at the same event or at the same happening, and both have completely different, will tell the story in a completely different way. And I often find that with my sisters. I'll recall something and they have no memory of it happening that way.
yeah. So thank you for sharing that particular perspective.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody for their beautiful words. I mean, what an amazing articulation of all the words, or the kinds of words we get coming back to us at Open Book. What a joy it is for us, particularly for Claire and me, to hear all of it from all the way from Orkney and beyond, all the way down. So thank you to everyone for their bravery too. We do this a lot. Those of us on stage do this quite a lot, but I know it's not an everyday occurrence for everybody who read. So thank you to you for your bravery too. So yeah, Hannah, how does it feel to hear some of your words coming back?
It's fab. I mean, it's just, I mean, they don't feel like my words coming back. They're just, but I think it's always really powerful when you put a sentiment out in the world and you feel like it's been responded to, or, you know, that sort of feeling coming back is really interesting, and the way people have taken that. So yeah, no, I've loved that, but I've loved every minute of it. There's so many beautiful little phrases that are going to stay with me, and when I sing, I feel like I've been on a massive journey through all these different groups and all these different, So no, it was really, it was beautiful. It's a real gift to have your poem responded to or kind of used as prompts and stuff. So yeah, thank you.
It's like the ripples thing. I was thinking about Elizabeth's poem, and I can picture Hannah Lowe's poem that she very kindly let us use, and then Elizabeth's done her own thing, and it's like that whole thing of you take something from someone and move on. And actually, that's what we do in life, isn't it? I mean, it might not always be about poetry, although some of us would prefer it was always about poetry. But, you know, in generally, we take something from someone that we meet, an encounter, or the beautiful story in Eyemouth. You know, we take something and then it affects everything we do from then on out, which is really beautiful.
And I think the same as you're feeling as you're hearing those about how that inspires your thinking. I mean, if it's not, I don't know if we always write a poem or something in response, but it's that idea that we can have our minds changed, or we can sort of, that, yes, was the whole idea about empathy, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I loved them. It was really great. What a privilege to hear all those poems and stories. Thank you.
And I always think it feels so hopeful as well when you You get that sense of shared community and people doing the same thing or a similar thing in different places across the country. And sometimes when you're sitting on your own with your pen and pencil and your book, you don't almost feel connected. But hearing all those stories that have been and poems that have been written across the whole of the country really makes me feel like there's a network out there of open bookers who are connected in some way.
Yeah, and it's events like this that let us bring you all together so you can all hear each other's work and that kind of cross-pollination can happen. But also, one of the very few silver linings of the COVID pandemic was that we were able to bring all of it online. And that means going forward we can keep some of the groups online. So if you're in a place where you don't have an open book group anymore, you'll be able to log into our open sessions that are online sessions, and the images and words will stay online as well, and there'll be a few others that we'll try and have. We're hoping for a creative writing group most weeks that is available online, and a shared reading group too, probably every week, that you can dial in so we can connect you in new ways. And we wouldn't have done that. We wouldn't have known how to do it. None of us understood this technology before COVID. So that's been a real privilege to bring lots of you together in ways that we haven't been able to before.
And it was a real joy before we went live today and all our readers were arriving and doing their technical checks. And I was hearing lots of, "Oh, it's so nice to see you. How are you? I haven't seen you for ages. What have you been up to? What have you been writing?" From people who were connected during COVID and were meeting online very regularly. And now some of those people have gone back to groups that are meeting in person. But there was just a really nice sense of old friends meeting up again before we started.
Yeah. I wonder if we should hear a couple more poems from the book.
Okay.
What we haven't said, if you don't know us well, is that open book, you might hear some of the same themes run through. We have written to Hannah's poem in 1 month this year, but every month across all our groups, we try and stick to a really broad theme. So it might be this month, it's just barely yarn, and yarn is in stitching or yarn is in telling a story. Last month was work. They're really broad themes, but every group tries to tackle them in the way of the lead reader wants to. But some of the themes kind of emerge through the book, and the idea of doing a book is so that you might be able to feel like you get that sense. So Claire and I picked out a couple more poems to read, or at least one more. And then before we leave, we're going to do the thing that we always do, which is to ask someone to read us out of the room. And lucky for Claire and me, we've got Hannah to do that for us. But before we get to that, we're just going to share a couple more from groups that couldn't be present today.
So this poem is called Star Song, and it's written by the women of the International Women's Friendship Group, and they meet in Edinburgh, and they're New Scots who are building a life in Edinburgh particularly, but in Scotland, and they come from all over the world. And one of the things I love about that group is that when they meet, they often have young children with them. They tend to meet at a time when their older children are at school. But as the group are writing and reading and laughing together, there's generally a babble of toddlers and babies in the room as well, and it's just such a lovely atmosphere. So their poem is Star Song. Summer in our village, sleeping outside, we looked up and saw the stars. Like a song, a star song. Look at their light. It stays in your eyes. Constellations, shining families with us all looking up at them. I chose a star, my sister another. Like a song, a star song, look at their light, it stays in your eyes. We were born under different stars, scattered like shooting, falling, flying stars, gathered here today. Like a song, a star song, look at their light, it stays in your eyes. Clear skies are rare in Scotland, but still at night, I always look up, just in case.
Beautiful, really beautiful. I'm going to read a poem from this area, because it feels right at the Wigtown Book Festival to read a poem from Dumfries and Galloway. So this is the next chapter's creative writing group, and lead reader Renita, who we should say is in the house, but not on screen. This is her poem, or their poem. The writers are Renita, James, Lilius, Anne, Elaine, and Nina. No house is complete without. No house is complete without a host of wonders, a door that is always open to welcome the light, the greetings of friends, a warm embrace. Sneak a radio in, a cushion to sit on, slippers to dance in, tea, cake, and praise for the food. Poker nights, coffee and gossip, happiness, laughter and warmth, smells that fill the house with love. Hang 5 chilies and a lime above the door. Bring sugar for when the lucky salt fails. I love that.
Nice.
I feel like I should go home straight home and hang 5 chilies and a lime. So I think that's probably enough poems from our book, and a nice way to end this wonderful session today, this reading and this celebration of our work right across Open Book for this community project, is to have Hannah read us out of the room. Quite often in our sessions, that's our goodbye, rather than kind of saying goodbye, and quite often in the digital age, we're not able to kind of put our coats on and keep chatting. So some of the things that we do in the group, or one thing we do, is read ourselves out of the room as a way of saying goodbye. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you to Event Scotland for supporting this project. Thank you especially to Hannah for her generosity in letting us use the groups, use the poems right across the group. Thanks to Creative Scotland and all the other funders that support our work, to the brave souls who come along to read at our events, and also all those who contribute to our groups. There's so many people we should thank, but that's all I can remember off the top of my head.
You've done a good job.
But thank you for being here with us today.
And just a last reminder, if you do want a copy of this or any of our previous collections, you can get them through the website.
Okay. I was just kind of inspired by, because I live in Dunbar, so for the Eyemouth people, I'm just up the road, and I felt like maybe I should read one about the shared coast that we have. So this is and also I felt it was a really, maybe to end with a poem about friendship, because that feels like and keeping each other company. And I feel like the Open Book did a really good job of that through COVID. So this is through COVID, I used to walk with my friend Melissa along the beach in Belhaven, and we used to watch the lapwings and sit on benches together. And so, but when I read this poem to a group of my friends, my friend Kerry said that if I ever write a poem about her, she wants it to be longer. So this is quite a short poem. So it's called Lapwings, and it's for Melissa. I walked with my friend along an empty beach. Sitting 2 meters apart, she told me her dreams. I told her mine. Together, we missed our mothers. Watched the lapwings in the salt marsh, the women swimming in the sea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, and thank you so much for sharing your work today. I've been really inspired. What a joy to have spent this time with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.